That's a good one. I tend to be a little bit more optimistic on this in that. Let me take a step back. There's a belief that divinity can come in a moment's notice. Jesus spoke of this, Buddha spoke of this, that you can achieve the highest level of sentient consciousness like that. There's no, like, 57 things you have to do. So what that says is, if we trust the Master's teachings, is that if you want it, or you're willing to get out of your own way, you have access to it. It already is. Okay? So, if enough people on this planet decided they truly wanted to live on a peaceful planet, we would be living on a peaceful planet. I'm not speaking like a Pollyanna. I'm saying the opposite, which is more people than not want to live on a violent planet. And violence, as we all know, takes many, many forms. If I could digress just for 1 second, because I think this is one point worth mentioning, because this is a perfect opportunity to do it. I grew up around a lot of people in my family and my extended community who were racists. I wouldn't quantify them as bad people, but they were racists. They said all the wrong words and said all the wrong things. And I heard what they said behind closed doors. And as a child who was sensitive, I thought, I'm not going to be that way. So when I look at the social justice movement, I don't see a lot of hearts and minds changing. I just see people retreating back to where Grandpa's just going to say what he's thinking in front of Grandma, who goes, oh, Bob, be quiet. You know what I mean? He or she or they aren't going to change how they feel just because somebody shames them into thinking and feeling that. Because we're in very much of a shaming culture at the moment. In fact, I do Q&A sometimes before pumpkin shows, and I did this thing one day where I said, I'm everything you can think of. Every ist you can think of. I said, I'm a racist, I'm a sexist, I laid it all and said, I'm guilty. So let's just move on. Because I just wanted to get it out of the way, because as a public person, you are forever on the hook that if you say the wrong thing, here comes the hatchet man to take away your status, your career, your opportunity, your right, And of course, there's a tremendous amount of hypocrisy involved in who they go after. They tend to leave their friends alone, and so we all know that this is a part of American life. Anyway, the reason I'm saying this is, as I was thinking, because I've had to meditate quite deeply on my country. When I was a younger man, I said lots of stupid stuff, like America sucks, and whatever. Shit you say because you think you're supposed to say it. So as I'm moving into a different part of my life, I'm thinking, what is my country? What country do I want to live in? Trying to, in essence, create the intention so that I can be it and I can embody it, so we can have these conversations openly in a safe space. And the word that came to me that I think is so relevant, and this is probably going to be my heart for the next few years, is people say America's a racist country. I would tend to agree with that. But we're a tolerant country. And I think, because words are important, I'm a singer, words, the sound of words. It's tolerance that makes America different. We have incredible tolerance. Incredible tolerance. We are tolerant as a people like no other country on the face of the earth. Our tolerance level is off the charts. That makes me proud.
Yeah.
So, they say sanity is the ability to hold two contradictory ideas. So you would say, how can you live in a country that you think is racist, at its root racist, but at the same time feel pride about its tolerance? And I would say that's exactly the point. Because tolerance creates the opportunity for change and growth, real change of hearts and minds.
Yes.
The way people learn to love their neighbor is to go to the picnic, to have the kids grow up together. And after 20 years, they just look over and it's like, they don't see, the next door neighbor wearing the sari or something.
Right.
They don't see it like that anymore. I remember when we had a huge influx in around 1971 in the western suburbs of people from Pakistan, Vietnam. You know, there's a lot, I don't know what that was about, but they all seem to settle in that part of the world where I was living. And I heard those things like, you know, you'd smell the food. You know, we never smelled curry before. You know, well, what was the smell? And something smelled weird. And here we are, you know, whatever, 40 years later, I wouldn't even think twice, right? But I had people 40 years ago going, what is that? What is that? Why are they dressed like that? What's with the dot on the head? Da, 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 da. And here we are in a very short amount of time. That's really not a big deal. So that's what I'm saying. Tolerance is the American way.
So because of our tolerance, we're probably not in World War III then, yes? Or when the day
No, I don't think I've answered the question. I think it's a really important question.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, in order to overcome something, let's start here, okay? And let's make an assumption. If anybody wants to argue, now's the time to argue, okay? We're all afraid, okay? We're entering into an unknown. That seems to be the narrative. If it's false, most people believe it. If you look at the polling, terrorism, for example, is the highest concern of the American public, above even the economy, which, by the way, has never recovered and sucks. Okay, so let's just get past that too. Okay. So if we're generally, collectively afraid, in the hero's journey you must confront the fear. It's much easier and supple to confront the fear as it is. Not the phantom that you think is there, but the fear that actually exists. So, let's say, for example, we are entering into the beginning stages, or we're already engaged in World War III. I won't even get into the politics. Anybody who knows the world that I inhabit, starting with Alex Jones on down, will know that there's a lot of weird shit going on. So let's just skip past that. The only way that all works is at some point we have to unify. We have to unify. You know, the divided we fall. So if for some reason, truly, our American way was under threat, truly, and you can argue it is. They just closed down all LA public schools today and sent every kid home. 900 schools.
Because of a threat.
Because of a threat. Now, I'm not a genius, but if that's all it takes to get people to move and not do something, well, one can argue there's going to be plenty more of that happening. Okay? So if this becomes a constancy, which God forbid, let's say this becomes part of our daily milieu, the only way we get through it is by aligning on something that we can agree upon. And if we can't, well, down you go. In essence, right, you deserve to fall because you're not strong enough to fight. And fight doesn't mean fight. Fight can mean
defend.
My favorite story of Jesus is when he goes in the temple and he turns over all the tables and says, get the fuck out of here.
Probably didn't say fuck, but he
did. Maybe he did, you don't know.
I wasn't there.
My point is there's a time to get angry, there's a time to rebel, there's a season, time is season. Beautiful song, right? Well, we're entering a season where this only goes right if we figure something out that we can agree upon.